So let's talk about the resurrection. What if one of the most famous events in history wasn't just about faith? What if it was actually about governance? Today, we're digging into a pretty radical idea from our source material that the resurrection was a political event that is still shaping our world. I mean, it's a huge question, right? But the framework we're exploring today argues that the resurrection wasn't just a miracle, it was the legal launch of a new global government, one with its own authority that, according to this view, is active right here, right now. All right, so here's how we're going to break it all down. We'll start with the core idea of this new authority. Then, we'll see how it supposedly plays out in two super different countries. After that, we'll unpack the key principle that ties it all together. And finally, we'll look at the ultimate change this worldview is really aiming for. Okay, first things first. What's the central idea here? Well, it all starts by looking at the resurrection in a totally different light. The idea is to stop seeing it as just a religious miracle. In this framework, you've got to see it as a political inauguration. Seriously, the moment a new divine government was established. And this isn't some small thing. It's a government with global jurisdiction that, in theory, fundamentally challenges every single earthly power out there, from dictatorships to democracies. Okay, but how? How does this supposed transfer of authority actually work? Well, according to the source material, it's not just some random power grab. It actually follows a very specific two-step legal process. It kicks off with what's described as an ancient, heavenly legal document, a decree. This decree then just kind of sits there, dormant, until it's formally activated thousands of years later, right after the resurrection. So you can think of it like this, that ancient text from Psalm 2. That's the written law, the legal document. But a law is just ink on paper until someone enacts it, right? So in this view, Christ's famous declaration in Galilee, that's the moment the law gets officially activated. That's what makes his authority a real present-day thing. Okay, let's take this from theory to the real world. Our first case study, Iran. How on earth could this ancient legal idea apply to a modern theocratic state like that? Well, in the context of Iran, this idea of Christ's governance is seen as a direct challenge to the regime's total control. It's described as this underground force of liberation, a kind of spiritual resurrection that's fueling a quiet revival. And it's all happening completely beyond the government's reach. And get this, here's the tangible impact that's claimed. From just a few hundred members to now reportedly over 1 million in the underground church. This is despite incredible persecution. So you have to ask, how is that even possible in one of the most restrictive countries in the world? The source points to something the state can't control, supernatural intervention, specifically dreams. The reports claim that many Muslims are meeting Jesus in their dreams, and that's something the government literally has no power to stop. This is seen as a kind of direct governance, bypassing all earthly laws and, for some, fulfilling ancient prophecies about that very region. All right, now let's do a complete 180. We're going to pivot from a place where this governance is happening in secret to a place where it's a very public call to action, the United States. Totally different context, but the source material argues it's driven by the exact same core idea. So, in the U.S. context, this idea of Christ's governance isn't some hidden revival. It's used as a public call to action. Political and cultural fights are framed as a spiritual war, and the idea is that citizens have a divine duty to get involved. And this quote cited in the source really captures the mindset. Disobedience to tyrants is obedience to God. That totally reframes political resistance, doesn't it? The logic is, if freedom is God's idea, then resisting a government that tries to crush that freedom isn't rebellion. It's actually loyalty to a higher authority. And this next one, this gets right to the heart of it. A tyrant dies, his rule ends. A martyr dies, his rule begins. The logic here is that sacrifice doesn't weaken the cause, it actually expands its influence. So in this worldview, death isn't the end of your impact, it's the beginning. It completely flips a tyrant's greatest weapon, fear, right on its head. Okay, so wait a minute. How can this same idea apply to a persecuted group in Iran and a political movement in the US? They seem like polar opposites. Well, the key, according to the source, is this central theological concept, a kind of tension that holds it all together. And that brings us to this core principle, the already but not yet. It's basically a way of holding two seemingly contradictory ideas in your head at the same time. The already part says a divine kingdom is here. It's active, it's powerful, right now. But the not yet part acknowledges that, yeah, the world still looks pretty broken and chaotic. And this isn't just some dusty old theology. It's presented as a really practical guide for living. The already gives you the courage to act right now, believing your leader is in charge. And the not yet gives you the hope for ultimate justice down the road, believing the final victory is guaranteed. So where does this all lead? What's the ultimate transformation this worldview is aiming for? Well, it's about a fundamental shift in the very foundation of power itself. Think about it. Every earthly tyrant, from Caesar to the dictators of today, has one ultimate tool: the fear of death. This framework says no, the resurrection changes everything. It offers a completely new foundation for society: victory over death. It's a complete paradigm shift, moving from a system of control built on fear to a kingdom of freedom built on courage. And just to be clear, the end goal described here isn't some global theocracy forced on people. The source describes it more like an organic change, where this relational knowledge of God just permeates society, naturally, as inevitably, it says, as water covers the sea. Which leaves us with the final, pretty provocative question posed by the source material. What happens when a whole group of people no longer fears the state's ultimate tool of control: death? The suggestion is that people who genuinely believe their leader conquered death become, and I'm quoting here, the most difficult to conquer. It's a powerful thought about where real power actually comes from.